I'm really pleased that we have with us on the call Monica Lennon, who is one of two candidates standing for Scottish Labour leader. Are you there, Monica?
Good morning, Crispin. Yep, I'm here.
Good morning. Thank you very much for coming on. It's great to see you. We had a discussion a couple of weeks ago about the election, and you know, Labour has really struggled in Scotland for quite a while now. What do you think the cause of Labour's being overtaken by the SNP? Why do you think that happened in the first place?
Oh, well, what a gloomy place to start on a Sunday morning, but I'm standing because Scottish Labour needs to change, because we can't go on losing. We're in third place in the Scottish Parliament. We have 23 MSPs. We're a very small group in a Parliament of 129. But the last time we won a Scottish Parliament election, Crispin, was in 2003. We were a coalition with the Lib Dem, so that was at the very beginning of the devolution years. So the SNP came in 2007, and they've been in government ever since. And they've built up support across the country. They've built up power in local government too, and they are the dominant force. So when I was a wee girl, you could weigh the Labour vote. Everyone where I lived in a working class area in Lanarkshire voted Labour. I didn't know any other kinds of politician, but now young people are growing up and it's just a sea of yellow. They see the SNP everywhere, but of course the Tories have had a bit of a comeback in Scotland too. And again, that's been around the issue of the Constitution, where both the SNP and the Tories have wanted to make it a binary debate about independence versus the status quo. So there's some people who want to just critique what's happened under Richard Leonard in Scotland, what's happened under Jeremy Corbyn, but we've got to go back actually to the late 90s to find out what happened in Scotland and why did people feel that Labour wasn't on their side. Why did people in working class communities like where I'm from turn away from Labour? It's because they felt that we turned away from them. And there has been a lot of energy and positivity around the Yes movement in Scotland, and a lot of people on the left have been drawn into that. And people, I suppose, feel, Crispin, that they don't really know what Labour in Scotland stands for. And for colleagues who are in other parts of the UK, perhaps feel that way right now about the Labour Party. I'm clear, we can't be a party that sits on the fence. You know, we can't be a party that just has a really good soundbite to get through the next interview, whether it's Andrew Marr or coming on your show, Crispin. We have to be authentic, and listening to friends today talking about what you are doing in your own communities, reaching out, helping your neighbours, helping people who need a food parcel, being part of the community, whether you're a local councillor or a party member. And that's why, to hear Howard speak passionately about the community organising unit in Scotland, our experience has been, well, if I can be honest about it, the way it worked wasn't perfect, but that probably reflects other issues that are growing in Scotland. But having community organisers is absolutely essential. It is essential because we failed to organise in our communities. Yeah. And in Scotland, when we talk about the Labour and trade union movement, we need to be honest, there's a huge disconnect, and not enough trade unionists in Scotland are voting for Labour, and that makes me really, really sad. I had a meeting with some young Unite members about a week ago. I've lost track of all the days. This is what leadership contests do to you, but about a week ago, young Unite workers, and most of them said they'd either left the Labour Party or just wouldn't join. Because they didn't feel that it was welcome. They couldn't even talk about the Constitution. They couldn't even talk about independence or more power. So I'll just for now say that we do have a situation in Scotland where the last 20 polls have shown a slight majority for independence. And in this contest, we have one candidate saying, don't talk about it. We just have to talk about COVID and nothing else. And me as the other candidate saying, we have to be Democrats. We have to treat people with respect. We can't tell working class people that, you know, and COVID is obviously terrible. And in the UK, what's happened is just a scandal. More than 100,000 people have lost their lives. That is in no means a success. But if we tell people that they can't think about their future, they can't think about the best route to social justice and financial security, because we can't go back to the way things were before COVID. And for me, as somebody who believes in devolution, it's about bringing more powers to Scotland. And we need to do that at a party level, but as a country, and empower our local community. So there's a lot to say, Crispin. I'll let you come in with our question, but yeah. Scottish Labour, this is a big moment for us. You know, we just have to get our head out the sand.
Well, I looked at some of the things you've said in the past, and you mentioned that Scottish Labour should become a party in its own right, which therefore it's not run by London, which seems stupid anyway. Why would London people know what Scotland needs? I mean, Scotland needs Labour to run itself. It has to be devolved. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. I also think that's a problem with the party as a whole, that we have all these people in London telling people all over the country, whether in England, Scotland or Wales, what's good for them. What's the situation with the unions? I mean, you've got backing from quite a few unions, haven't you? Do you think that the unions in Scotland could keep Scottish Labour financially solvent and capable of running campaigns without London's support? Are you muted? Oh, who's muted you? Somebody's muted you, and it wasn't me. You should be unmuted now.
I think I might have muted myself as a force of habit, unless Jackie Weaver's managed to sneak in to the call. So I think, you know, it's really important that Labour is the party of workers in Scotland. That's what we have to focus on. And, you know, yes, it would be great to have more funding from trade unionists and from ordinary working people, but they have to have a good reason to do that. I think in Scotland we do have the right policy platform that is in the best interest of workers. We've had 14 years of the SNP. They've talked a good game on fair work, lots of rhetoric, but the record is really poor. They count 0-hour contracts as a positive destination for young people. So when you scrape under the surface of the SNP, who appear very progressive and on the left, it's just not the case. In terms of the constitutional debate, the STUC is very clear. Unite and Unison, other unions are very clear that they agree that Scotland has the right to determine its own future. They believe in self-determination. They haven't taken a position to say Scotland should become independent or Scotland should remain in the UK. But I think that the real consensus in the country is around radical social and economic reform. And to do that, we have to use the powers we have in Scotland fully. So we have a drug death crisis in Scotland. The drug death rate in Scotland is 3 times higher than the rest of the UK. It's the highest in Europe. Addiction and substance misuse can affect anyone, but disproportionately, it's the poorest people in Scotland who are dying in their thousands, and under the SNP that has doubled in a decade. So we've said it's wrong that the SNP cut budgets for alcohol and drug services. It's wrong that rehab beds were shut down. But at a UK level, we have a Misuse of Drugs Act that's 50 years old. It has failed. The war on drugs has failed. And we believe that, well, I believe, and I think I've managed to get this into policy under Richard Leonard. Certainly he agreed, but of course the manifesto still has to be written, that we need decriminalisation. People who are unwell and their addiction is rooted in early childhood trauma, the impacts of poverty, they need help. They need to get well, you know, help people to get into treatment, into rehab and into recovery and long-term recovery. Putting people in prison is not the answer. And I'm so passionate about addiction issues. My dad was an alcoholic. He died at 60. Obviously great sadness and loss for my family. But every day people in my region contact me to say, we don't know what to do. So let's get those powers. I mean, I had a hustings yesterday, and Sarwar said to party members, we need to look at that. Well, we've been looking at these issues for a very, very long time, and we describe what's happening in our communities, but we don't do anything about it. So Keir Starmer doesn't agree with me on the issue about decriminalisation. So that's a battle that needs to happen. But where people get angry in Scotland is it before the 2019 general election, when we had 7 MPs in Scotland, we only have 1 now. Good colleagues like Paul Sweeney, Danielle Rowley, Hugh Gaffney, Jed Killen were on the Scottish Affairs Committee, and they took evidence into the drug death issue in Scotland. And that committee had an excellent report with strong recommendations for the UK government. What's happened to it? You know, Boris Johnson and his minister have put that in a drawer and said, oh no, we'll just have a go at the SNP. So people are sick of that. So we do need change. We need employment law devolved to Scotland. I strongly believe in that. But until we can show that we're actually listening to people, that we're willing to act like democratic socialists, I don't think we're going to get a hearing, Crispin.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that I've looked at the other things you've done. I mean, the free universal access to period products, which was your call. You put that through, and other things like you've got a campaign against fire and hire in Tesco's in Livingston, and you're calling for the National Care Service. I mean, these are all positive things that you're promoting. You don't seem to be hedging your bets on how to get popular, which is probably the thing that puts most people off politicians at the moment, I believe, is people who don't actually speak their mind and just try and see what other people think. And like you said, someone else saying, oh, we'll see what we can do about that, does sound like a political speak from people who are hedging their bets. Can you tell us how we can support you? Because many of us, there are many in Scotland who watch this, but there's also people in south of the border and in Wales. How can we support your campaign? You've not been muted again. You haven't. All right, okay. Let's go back and find. Here we go. It must be that Jackie Weaver. There you go.
I think it's me again. I'm so sorry. I've spent so many hours in the last few weeks doing these calls. I always mute myself when the other speaker comes on. Well, I would appreciate any support. You know, colleagues on the call today. I mean, there's over 400 on this Zoom alone. That is incredible. So yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's Monica Lennon. Sorry, at Monica Lennon #7. It's my lucky number, my birthday. The email address for the campaign is hello@monicaforleader.org. But if you go into my Twitter bio, you'll get the campaign website. There's a Facebook page as well. People have been so kind. I mean, a few weeks ago when Richard resigned, I didn't think about running for this, and I had encouragement, pressure from party members, from friends, from constituents, saying please do this. So I only had a weekend to decide. The Scottish Executive Committee, the SEC, met on the Saturday morning and said, let us know by Sunday midnight if you want to apply to be the Scottish Labour leader. So it wasn't a lot of time for a working mum to kind of think, right, okay, can I do this? And I was kind of being a bit shallow, thinking, but the hairdressers are shut, I can't get my roots done, my nails are falling apart, this is not going to look good on TV, because, you know, people judge you on these things. But
it was an unbelievably quick call for that election. But what I would like to say is that I think the person who's standing against you has a bit more cash than you do. Is that fair to say? I mean, for the campaign, you haven't muted yourself again, have you?
I haven't. No, I'm trying not to press mute. Look, people know that my campaign is a grassroots campaign. It costs a lot of money to run it. I'm glad in a way that we're not having to tour the country over the course of the next few weeks, because it costs a lot of money and time. And in Parliament, for those who don't know me, I am Scottish Labour's Health and Social Care member in the Shadow Cabinet. So, you know, the day job continues, and during the pandemic, people are still struggling, people need support. So I'm trying to do that and run the campaign. But I've just been so thrilled with the support, small donations, people who are saying, here's a £5, here's £10, do you know what, I'm going to chip in on payday. That's people who don't have a lot of money to give away, and that means much, much more to me. And that's the way back to rebuilding Scottish Labour. If we can earn the trust of people in their communities, in their workplaces, to help them to organise so that they can build a better life for themselves, because that doesn't come from the top down. People have to fight for that. Yeah. Equality and justice isn't just handed to people. We know that. We have to fight for that. And that's why I'm glad you mentioned the Period Products Act. I keep calling it the bill, and it got royal assent at the end of January, which was fantastic, and I'm really, really delighted. But to get that legislation over the line during a pandemic, when we know that in times of austerity and economic crisis, the rights of women and girls are usually pushed to the back of the queue. We saw that from 2010 under the Tories, under austerity. We've seen what's happened to the lives of women and girls. You know, we've got the Tories who are the party of the rape clause and the benefit cap and all the other assaults on workers that really affect women. You know, pregnancy discrimination in this country is just obscene. But to get that legislation through, when people said to me as a new MSP coming into Parliament in 2016, you know, this is very idealistic, this has never been done, free universal access to period products. And what was really amazing was actually, because I'm not a tribal person, I will work to persuade people. I'll use different tactics, I'll be creative, but we used the last Tory leadership contest in Scotland, because there's many of them. We're always changing leaders in Scotland, but the Tories had a contest, and one of our comrades, Councillor Joe Cullinane, who leads North Ayrshire Council, went onto a Facebook Live and kind of ambushed the guy who became the Tory leader to say, will you support Monica's campaign? And he said yes. So I had to follow that up, and the next thing I'm in the office of the Tory leader talking about the price of tampons, and he backed the campaign. And he did that before Nicola Sturgeon, because for anyone who doesn't know, the SNP and the Tories voted the bill down at committee. Wow. They said that legislation wasn't necessary, we were still evaluating pilot schemes, and there was still debates about means testing, and it was like, no, we need this to be universal. Not everyone will opt in, the uptake rate will actually be pretty modest, but this is about dignity. It's not about asking women and girls or people who menstruate, you know, how many pads and tampons they need, how much money they have, because although it was about, you know, financial poverty and access, it was about much more. It was about women and girls who experience domestic violence, women and girls who have conditions like endometriosis and have additional needs too. But it's very much a workplace issue. So, you know, under Jeremy's leadership, I had fantastic support from Jeremy and John McDonnell, but also from Don Butler and Angela Rayner. And I came to Westminster and led some events in London. Well, but it's a big workplace issue that people should take on in their own workplaces, organise at a local level.
Well, look, we got to move on, because it's great to speak to you, and we'll try and get in the chat. People will put links to your crowdfunder, hopefully, and also other stuff, how they can help you. Great to see you. Thank you for coming on. I just wanted to ask you beforehand, before you go, what do you think of my hat? You like it? Oh, right, okay. Oh, you've been muted again. You've muted yourself. Right, okay. Well, anyway.